UK have formalized the free trade deal agreement. It is a landmark deal, but what does it really mean for the two nations and beyond? And what sectors is it going to impact the most? Well, to decode all of this, I'm joined by Jayant Krishna, senior economist. I'm also joined by Mitali Nikore, senior economist. Thank you both for your time. So the world really wants to know, look, how do we decode this landmark trade deal? And what does it really mean for the two nations, Mitali?
So, first of all, Sakshi, thanks for having me on the show. And, we've been talking about this off air also for the last few days. What is actually going to become cheaper? What is going to become more expensive? But I want to actually spotlight the big picture here. And I think the big picture is that this is a way for two countries to recognize each other as equals. For many years, the UK and India have had a complicated economic history. I mean, as a former colony of the UK, we will always have a sort of complicated history with the UK. But today, this deal recognizes India as an equal growth partner. This deal also recognizes the power of the Indian consumer. And most importantly, it provides a completely new paradigm in which our businesses can enter the UK economy, can service the UK economy, can manufacture in the UK. We all remember that one of our massive businesses on pharmaceuticals has actually shifted to the UK. We know that Serum Labs is doing a lot of manufacturing in the UK already. And this is the kind of boost that both the economies need, because while you have high technology capabilities and high tech centers that are already established in the UK, we don't have that to that extent here. And this deal allows us as two countries to bring each other's complementarities in the best way forward, where you can have high tech development in the UK, bring that to India, and then do a mass manufacturing in India in much lower cost. So, at a very large, high level scale, not going into sectors, I would say that this is a massive boost for both countries.
A massive boost for both countries. Do you agree, Jayant Krishna? How do you think the world should initially look at this landmark deal?
Yeah, so absolutely. As the British Prime Minister Starmer has said very clearly that, this is the most significant trade deal, which has happened in the UK since they announced Brexit.
Yeah.
If you look at India, out of other FTAs that we have signed with UAE, with Australia, and so on and so forth, I think this is the biggest in terms of volume of trade and so on and so forth. And eventually, I agree with what Mitali said. See, largely, if you look at, FTAs, invariably, whichever countries have had FTAs, it becomes some kind of a magnet for a boost in FDI. I'm talking about both the British FDI into India and Indian investments into UK, right? Kind of a thing. It contrary to the popular belief that, there is no protectionism now, the extent to which protectionism was given to Indian industry has reduced. But eventually, it stimulates domestic growth in India. I think I see that happening hugely. There's a huge much better access to raw material, capital goods. The consumers benefit because of cheaper prices of several products in both the countries. So I think it's a win-win for both the countries. And I see not just FDI, more jobs happening in both the countries. See, let's understand. Many in India still don't believe that trade could be a major component of GDP. Our trade to GDP ratio, which used to be in around 30s, in last 3-4 years, it has gone into 40s, and sometimes it has crossed 45% also. If you look at countries like Singapore, their trade to GDP ratio is in excess of 100% of their GDP. So I think as there's a greater component of trade to GDP in our country, I think it will boost the overall economy, and it will be beneficial in several ways, Sakshi.
It will be beneficial in several ways, Mitali. A big boost for FDI, manufacturing, jobs, businesses. But for those wondering, look, what will it impact the most, and what are the timelines going to be? Also, remember this landmark deal comes in the backdrop of course, the Trump tariff tantrums as the world has seen it. What do you make of this?
I love your, Trump tariff tantrums line. But, of course, in terms of timelines first, this is basically the signing between the prime ministers. It's almost like a statement of intent. And what happens now is that the parliaments of both countries have to ratify this deal. And to be very honest, I think it will be much easier to get through the Indian parliament because, of course, the current administration has a majority in both houses. And also, we have seen bipartisan support for this deal because on this issue, most of the opposition parties are well aligned with the government's vision. But I do believe that in the UK, there's going to be a bit of a, little bit of a challenging time for the Labour government to actually get this through in their parliament because, of course, we know that the British politics is very different. We know that the opposition in the UK has its own sort of thinking around different trade deals, while on paper and while in principle there is alignment between both the administrations, the conservatives and the Labour government in the UK on the trade deal with India, but on the specifics, it might be difficult to get the deal through in the UK parliament. Once that does go through, it's expected that by mid 2026 the deals will be fully signed and will be coming into effect. So it gives a lot of businesses on both sides time to prepare, time to structure their value chains. Now that we know the entire schedule of tariffs and the
Right.
tariff reductions, so we know that, for example, in automobile or in whiskey, which we love to, talk about, and the fact that Scotch whiskey is going to become cheaper. So we know that, how the tariffs are going to play out. It also
Mhm.
gives these businesses a chance to say, okay, do I want to manufacture in UK? Do I want to manufacture some part of it in India because now I'll be servicing the Indian market? Do I want to actually invest more through a new entity and create British Indian companies which are joint ventures? So this is the time when a lot of that gearing up from the private sector is expected.
Right, a lot of gearing up from the private sector is expected. Jan, Krishna, do you agree? And also for those wondering, like she was mentioning, there's a whole list of okay, what's cheaper for the two nations, and what are the timelines going to be? Your thoughts?
So, Sakshi, a lot of people think that FTA meaning that, there's a zero import duty on all products right from day one. So that's not the way it happens. What it talks about that, in almost, few years time, almost 10 years time, 85% of all items, traded between the two countries will have zero duty. But that's staggered 10 years down the line. But if you look at, whiskey, scotches, and so on and so forth, it has come down, it's become half, from 150% duty to about 75% duty, which means that the British spirits will be available much cheaper in India. And in 10 years' time, this will go down to as low as 40%, kind of thing. If you look at auto sector, it comes down from 100% to 10%, but it's under a quota system, right? Kind of a thing. So I think lots of areas like imports, the products that India imports from UK, not just the whiskey and auto, but cosmetics, chocolates, biscuits, medical devices, pharmaceutical and life sciences. I think they will become, cheaper. And if you look at the products which are of interest to India from an export to UK point of view, 99% of those products actually are becoming a zero duty. And sectors which will benefit the most are textile, and when we say textile, what we mean, not the raw textile, but the garment industry, the apparel industry, where we'll have a competitive advantage vis-a-vis our immediate competitors like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and so on and so forth. Leather goods, sports goods. This category is not talked about, but India is emerging as a major hub for sports goods manufacturing all over the world. Gems and jewelry, and especially the diamond trade, which is already struggling because of lab-grown diamonds rather than the natural diamonds. We'll get a fillip on this, and organic food. So I think these are the product categories where exports from India to UK. And the prices available in UK will become as much cheaper, and our products will have that, their exportability improves to that extent substantially. So I essentially see, and I'm very happy, Sakshi, because when I was the Group CEO of UK India Business Council, I think we We had helped the process in the sense we had set up through 3 expert groups. One was for food and drinks, other was for healthcare and life sciences, and third was for the technology space, IT and ITS, as we know in our country. And we had experts and industry leaders from both countries, and they drove the process, which was used by the two governments, to come to an understanding. So I'm very, very happy, since in the initial stages of the FTA discussions, which happened almost five years ago, they started, we having played a small role in my earlier avatar.
Absolutely. Both of you really have been looking into this and detailing this for a while now. And like you both said, the impact can be felt from textiles to chocolates to medical devices. And of course, we will continue to track the timelines for sure. But for now, thank you so much for sharing your initial thoughts.
A pleasure.